Okay. No. Should I? No. All right. Well, hi everyone. I'm from Santiago de Chile. First of all, I wanted to say thanks to Kenneth and Alana and all the team behind this event. I think it's super important, like, to keep a community like this. Here in Vancouver, I'm from Santiago de Chile, so I speak Spanish. This one will be my first talk in English, so I feel like weird but excited too. And yeah, so and this afternoon I would love to share some thoughts about some reflections about the typography, let's say. Work from my own perspective from the south side of the world. So about me, from people that maybe for those who do know where is Chile, that's Chile, more than 10,000, so it's super far from here. Well, I was born in Santiago, the capital of Chile, in a popular neighborhood called San Joaquin. I grew up in a family with values tied to the social concerns and the common good and love. That's me as a Joker at Halloween. I'm the first person in my family to attend university, which is super important for them and for me too, considering that some part of my family uh, they didn't finish their education and dedicate their life to work until now. Since the end of the high school, I felt interest in design without really knowing what it was and what it meant. When I entered the university in Santiago, I discovered all the things related to letters and type design, and I simply fell in love with it. Um, from there, I started to study and using most of my time to learn about this European tradition that arrived in Chile almost 200 years ago, but something that we can consider as such since the early 90s. Uh, Here's an example of the first piece of paper that people made in Chile. It's super ugly, has uh, you can see like so many mistakes. Um, and well, in Latin America, there is a visual language linked to the legacy of the conquest, of the Spanish conquest and subsequent arrival of the printing press in Chile. Here's the first book in Chile called Carta de un Americano al Español. It means in English a letter from an American to Spanish. And here are some examples how was like the material at that time, super like material, say. And of course, some different artists of European descent and immigrants, they brought part of the European visuality to Chile. Um, Here's other examples too. This legacy was ignored during the development of design in Chile and America, of course, well, South America, and had no influence on typography in Latin America until the advent of the computers and the internet. So after that, many Latin American type designers in the digital era began to explore this heritage of the language. Here's an example from Francisco Galvez from Chile. It's a very popular type designer from Chile. He's very popular around the world, I'll say, and also with some influences from Gabriel Martinez Meave from Mexico too. From my point of view, we find inspiration and some references in the street, in the popular expression of our young nation. the lack of the long history in typography and type design implies that we can work without the burden of the past, without with a lot of autonomy, I'll say, and without fear, taking some inspiration from our own visuality. Um, and then I thought maybe like it's a way like to live, think like this thing like as a serious job. Uh, and then while still a student in 2015 and 2016, I designed my first typography called No51, which won the Type Award, a contest by an Uruguayan digital foundry seeking to showcase young talents in Latin America at that time. Uh, and then in 2017, I decided to design a sans serif typeface focused on editorial uses with semi-square counterforms, like Helvetica, but it's not Helvetica. And then I finished university in 2019, and a few months before I was the estallido social in Chile, there was a series of massive demonstrations and a disturbance caused by various social issues in Chile, and also the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which made me think I would never find a job, of course. So I thought like, so why decide like to trying to make funds for a living? And then I started to build my own website, and the adventure just began. I started to work in some typefaces until I got an email from a design studio in Czech Republic. Of course, at that time my English was like zero. Interesting to pay me to design a custom typeface for a new company there. And here's some examples, some results. That's part of the Cyrillic alphabet that I designed for them too. And here's some examples to how was like the results of the job. Since then, my work has been a tool for developing various attempts to small brands and studios around Czech Republic and Chile too, and small studios. Here are some examples too. I was, however, asked to design a typography for the communication campaign of the new constitution in Chile, which ended up being used in the future constitution. Here are some examples too. How was the font? Here the social media uses too. And well, people like using the book were with the new the constitution. Sorry. Meanwhile, I continue designing fonts for other, more fonts with less economic impact, but maybe more reflection on their purpose and form. Until I came to this country, thanks to my partner. Thanks to my partner invitation to live a one year experience, which became almost 3 years now. Next year I'll be 10 years since I started studying typography, 8 years making fonts, and 5 years where I decided to dedicate myself to this. It hasn't been an easy experience, especially when you are independent from a place where people don't really know much about it, even designers too in Chile. For me, typography is something that more linked to a thing that has like a form, a software, and that takes months or even years to develop. It's something beyond just letters. So I thought like maybe when you like, I think that most of the people, designers or not, when they think of buying typefaces, the first thing that comes to mind is my phones. It's a website. It's controlled by a monotype Imagine Holding. Through these pictures, you can see how many companies they own. And of course, it's not like just funds. There are so many, so much companies are related to the technology industry, I'll say. Um, so after all, most of the licenses for funds they are available now are part of the same company, and I think that's something not good. Regardless of the economic model, it's not a good thing in my opinion. Uh, so how can we move forward or find other paths for others to understand and see the value of what we do? In my case, from the three with the questions, who I am, where I'm from, and what surrounds me. These questions remind me very important to find a path or return to a center if I forget that. In this case, I want to reflect on the interview in the Taiji, where Vanessa Campbell, part of the Musqueam Band, First Nation community, as you know, mentioned some issues with some different fonts that don't support their alphabet, or several from the Pacific coast too, or how some communities will be facing economic limits due to funds they cannot afford to a license in the future. I think it will be amazing to see more things like this in the city. For signing, for studios in areas where typography can be a useful and fundamental tool. How do I understand typography, and how do I try to share its value with those who don't know? For me, typography is a discipline that studies the expression of the language. It's the visual tone for communication. It's a linguistic sign that responds to a certain reality, which is dynamic and it's always changing. Here's some examples of my work. I see it as an opportunity to resignify that sign, and though it with value and all the things to make a scenario beyond a simple text, adding it to a conceptual and aesthetic value for the clients, for those who want to have their voice or unique experience in the world. I design and I make fonts or new fonts starting from letters that I work with and within typography, taking on new challenges are related to a visual communication and technology for both small or large companies. I'm interested in transporting language. My spot is the space between the art, the letters, and the rigor of technology, mixing both. And here is, well, this is a font that I was working in Chile before get here. And when I saw the perspective how work the typography here, I felt so much interest to start to add some letters like a new standard for my work now. Um, and this is another example too. And also, I would love to share this font for people, of course, that is interested in it, to test, see how it works, of course. So I leave my email at the end of in the last slide, I guess. And here's the use of the font for the Constitution of Chile. In simple terms, I firmly believe in supporting small and independent foundries, even more if they are from here, of course, local. I think as a type designers, we play a very specific role. We simply make letters, but also at the same time, for people, it's very important too. Very every expression is valid, of course, for fonts, for my fonts, or maybe like something with more reflection on it, or people that just think this like just letters as an exercise. I prefer to adapt that what makes sense to me, of course. I think it's very important, like to showing people and maybe that they don't know about it, show about what we do, and in return, learning from them too. Sharing knowledge, otherwise, what's the point, I guess? And reinforcement, people that among as authors, especially if they are independent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that amazing talk. I love how you just sort of rifled through a couple of amazing examples of your type in the middle there too. We might have to have you flip back to some of those. So we do have we have some time for a couple of questions for you as well, if that's all right. So did anyone have a question? I guess I forgot to prime you for thinking of that during, so we can go to mine if no one has one, but yeah.
So I think a lot of the themes that you talked about are themes that are showing up everywhere. Maybe we should support local. Maybe we should think of the makers of these things. Maybe giant corporations shouldn't own everything. Do you have any thoughts on how we activate our local community to connect with type, that it is something they can potentially buy locally or even have designed?
Well, from my perspective, I guess it's something related to time, with some education for people that maybe they don't know. Because, I mean, for like, if I'll assume that here there are so many designers too, but I asked to my mother, for example, if she know about typeface before, and never. Like for her was just letters and that's it. And it's cool because that's the main goal of the typefaces, like to support a special message through the communication. So for that part, I think it's cool that people maybe don't know, but also people think that typefaces just appears in their laptops, and I think it's not like that, of course. I think it's just time. I'll say that events like these are super important. I've been talking with another colleagues from New York, and it will be a new TypeCon in Portland soon, and I saw the ticket, and I think it's super expensive, like around $500 US, and I think it's a lot of money. Honestly, I think letters, it's something that maybe everyone should know about it, and I think it's just time and education. Yeah, I'll say that. I know it's like a very like simply and short question, but yeah, I think it's something like maybe we can discuss like later. Yeah, yeah. I,
Thanks. Yeah, it is a really difficult subject, right? But okay, do we have another question? I mean, I think it's really we got to hear about your like time moving here, right, as well. So that's one thing I would be interested in hearing more about. But if anyone had a specific question, yeah.
I was wondering if you found specific challenges or differences between creating typefaces for different languages, for example, Spanish and English, or even the indigenous languages. What do you find is different between them in
Yeah.
your process?
Well, between Spanish or English, of course, I think when we got here, my English was zero, like zero, like just hi and how are you, like things like that. And of course, like difference between Spanish and English, there's no difference, I guess, like a formal difference because it's the same script. It's the Latin script. We use same letters like from A to Z. But in the First Nation letters that I've been working on, yes, I have like to deal with so many, not issues, but like I think there is some like so much knowledge how those letters should be works, and of course I think I don't have like the skill, like the English skill yet, like to talk to some communities and like ask them like, oh, sorry, I'm doing this font. Do you mind like to test like for me, because like on my laptop, sorry, like looks of course like good, like it's something like works, you know, but the main focus is like users, like people. So it's very important to me know the opinion that people that use fonts and they are choosing maybe my fonts because they have another fonts that those fonts don't support their languages. So yeah, I think it will be amazing like to make like something where this knowledge about First Nation letters. Well, I just share some examples about the Whitney Salishan. It's the font that Tiro Typeworks and Matt Baberton work for the UBC department. So yeah, I think it's just like, I guess, yeah, time and like try to build a local community about like a standard, you know, because for example, if I'm dealing with things that maybe some other tech designers they solve, and I think it's like cool like to keep a standard, like to start to add those letters to our fonts, and of course that know that people can use it, and I think that's my main concern now. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Those were great questions, and yeah, I think that's even just I know you're newer here, but that's something that local people have told me they struggle with too, about like learning like a shared resource for that kind of thing, right? Like there's a lot of knowledge that isn't accessible that could be, right, which would be great. So that's something for all of us to work on and think about more, right? Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break here before our next talk. So, but thank you very much again to Thank you.